welcome to this episode of Twist. I'm Ethan. This is Corey, and we're here today with Mr. Andrew Peterson. Mr. Peterson is a Christian singer, songwriter, and author, as well as a homeschool dad. Thank you for taking time to speak with us today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
So why did your family decide to homeschool?
Why did we decide to homeschool? We actually decide to homeschool on like a monthly basis. We kind of are. we have like every year kind of have to reevaluate and make sure that homeschooling is the right thing for us. And part of the reason we've continued to do it is because I have kind of a weird schedule. Like I don't have a normal job where I get up in the morning and work until 5 and come home. Like a lot of my work kind of happens in chunks. So I'll like be gone for a weekend, but then I'm home all week. Then I'll be gone for another weekend. I'll be home for 2 weeks. And so my job is kind of in and out like that. So we like having the freedom of being able to like go on a quick family trip to the mountains if we want to when I'm home, instead of the kids being in school all day when I'm home. Does that make sense? So a lot of it's just I really love my kids, but I also really like them. And so I like hanging out with them, and so this gives us time to really be together.
Mr. Peterson, can you tell us a little bit how you got into a career in singing and songwriting?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that when I was your age, I really loved like music, and I loved to draw, and I loved books, and everything in me was drawn to wanting to tell stories somehow. And I loved all that stuff, but I didn't know that it could be my job really. I just kind of thought, well, only other people do that. I don't know how that works. So nobody I knew did it for a living, for their job. And so I just thought it was just a hobby. I thought, well, you know, if I want to serve God, then I need to be a preacher. And if I want to do music, then I'm doing music and I'm not really serving God. That's the way I thought of it. So then, around the time I was about 18 years old, I had been in a band. It was just a rock band. And the band broke up, and I didn't know what to do with my life. And I didn't want to be a preacher because I loved music. And I didn't understand that I could love music and serve God. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I kind of was confused about all that. I didn't see how it could work together. And then I heard the music of this guy named Rich Mullins. Have you guys ever heard of Rich Mullins before?
No.
Okay, so he died about 15 years ago in a car crash.
Ouch.
Yeah. It was very sad because he was one of the greatest songwriters who was a Christian that I'd ever heard. And when I heard his music, I felt like God spoke straight to my heart, to the deepest part of my heart. And I remember telling God one night when I was praying, God, if I can somehow make people feel the way his music made me feel, that's what I want to do with my songs. And so that was the beginning of me kind of realizing that all of my love for stories and movies and books and music and my love for Jesus could be kind of mashed together into one thing. And so that's how I started doing music.
So, being a Christian singer, songwriter, and author, as well as a homeschool dad, seems like a lot of different hats to wear. How did you keep it all in balance?
Well, that's a good question. Part of it is because my wife and my kids remind me of what's really important all the time. And I think that not only my wife and my kids, but Ben and Andy, the guys you met earlier, those two guys. Those guys are my two best friends, and they often will help me to stay focused on what is important, which is Jesus first and then my family, And sometimes when you do music for a living, your job can get really, really busy. And sometimes you need your friend to go, hey, guess what? You're working too much. You need to come. You need to be with your wife and kids. You need to stop checking your email. That kind of stuff. And so those guys help keep me focused on what I'm supposed to be doing. But as far as bouncing back and forth between being an author and being a songwriter or whatever, I only work on one thing at a time. So like right now, I'm in the studio making a CD, and I'm almost finished making the record. And as soon as that album is finished, I'm going to get out my notebook and start writing book 4 of the Better Saga. And I probably won't write any songs while I'm working on the book. And when the book's over, then I'm going to start working on whatever's next. I don't know what's going to be after that.
So, as many of you probably know, Mr. Peterson is the author of some really awesome books in a series called the Better Saga. So, these books really show that you have quite the imagination. Did you ever have this when you were a child and ever get you into trouble?
Did it ever get me into trouble? Let me think about this. I may have gotten, well, I know this. I know that I did not get very good grades when I was in school when I was a kid. And part of the reason I didn't was because I was always kind of dreaming about what was outside the windows of the schoolroom. And I really love to read, but I love to read not the kind of, I like to read adventure stories, you know, the Hardy Boys books, or the Sherlock Holmes or Edgar Allan Poe or the Narnia books, whatever. But those weren't the kind of books that my teachers necessarily were teaching from, and so I was always kind of in my own world drawing and all that kind of stuff. So it made it hard for me to focus on doing my homework. So I wasn't the best student in the world because my brain was always kind of floating around out here somewhere. But, you know, I made it through. I finally found a way to find the discipline to graduate from high school, you know, and go to college, and college was better grades. And I think the cool thing was that that what I learned, like, to be an author or to be a songwriter and to use your imagination as your job, you also need to learn how to be disciplined. So, like, you can have 1,000 great stories floating around in your head, but nobody's ever going to read them until you sit down and write the book. And writing the book is kind of like doing your homework. You know what I'm saying? And so I had to learn how to bring both of those things together.
Are you planning on writing any more books in the Wings Feather Saga?
Yes. There's one more book after The Monster in the Hollow. So book 4 will be the last book in the series. And it's going to be called The Warden and the Wolf King. And it's going to be the kind of like conclusion of the whole story. And I'm really excited about it.
It says on your website you are working on a new CD. When will it come? When will this be released?
It's coming out on August 21st. So once I finish, I'll probably finish it next month, and then they'll start making all the CD cover and putting all the packaging together. It takes a few months to do all that.
If you'd like more info on Mr. Peterson's books or music, you can check out his website at www.andrew-peterson.com. Thank you, Mr. Peterson, for your time today. We'll be praying for you, your family, and your ministry, that God will continue to bless you in all these areas. And thank you for watching. See you next time on Twitter.